Taos, New Mexico is located an hour and 20 minutes north of Santa Fe. There is many sightseeing attractions in Taos, New Mexico, Taos Gorge being one of them. The gorge is a steel arch bridge that was started in 1963 and completed in 1965, and it goes across the Rio Grande River. Taos Pueblo is a Tiwa-speaking Pueblo Indian village. Taos Pueblo is a Tiwa-speaking village. In the middle of the village you will see a 5-story adobe complex. Taos Pueblo celebrates annually on September 30th, San Geronimo Feast Day. During feasts you will see traditional pole climbing events take place and people serving traditional foods from their home. Virginia T. Romero was a famous micaceous pottery maker from Taos Pueblo. In 2005, the New Mexico Women's Forum honored Virginia with an official scenic historic marker. In 1847, during the Mexican-American War, the church in Taos Pueblo was destroyed. In 1850, San Geronimo Church was rebuilt. Christopher Houston Carson moved from Missouri to Taos, New Mexico, where he built a home and raised a family. Kit Carson was part of the 1st New Mexico Regiment Volunteer Cavalry, where he was a commander. In 1864, Kit Carson helped relocate the Navajo people to Fort Sumner, which was known as the Navajo Long Walk. May of 1868, Kit Carson died at the age of 58. Porter Swensel from Santa Clara Pueblo, a historian, would tell us a little bit about Taos' history.
And so for many, many centuries, Taos served as a trading area for when those people living on the Great Plains would come and trade with Pueblo people and vice versa, long before European contact. Now, that didn't really change when Europeans came into New Mexico, where Taos remained a very important trade center, during both the Spanish, Mexican, and then of course the American periods as well. Continued to serve a very important trade area, where seasonally people from all over would come into Taos, near the Pueblo, and later on near Rancho de Taos, and have things like foot races, have horse races, and trade all sorts of good buffalo robes, pinon nuts. Later on you have things like fruit, dried fruit being traded. And of course one of the things that you can't overlook is the trade in captives, which was pretty open-ended on all sides, where people, whether they were Hispano, whether they were Pueblos, Comanches, Utes, Apaches, all would come and exchange captives from various tribes that they had raided. So Taos was also a very important place for the exchange of captives throughout the Spanish colonial and going into the Mexican and early American periods as well. So as being sort of that border town trade center, Taos also is really important as a place for the group of Inizaros, which the main town there being Rancho de Taos, which was a Inizaro village. Inizaros being basically former rescued slaves of again going to that captive trade. So what would happen is you have captives being brought into Taos, say for example, and Hispanos would go up there and purchase those captives, and it would be called rescuing them. But because it was expensive to rescue these captives, so to speak, then the captives were forced to labor to pay off their own rescue from captivity. So basically, on a basic level, they just moved from being captives in one place to captives for another group of people. Once they had fulfilled their duties, paying off their rescue, they were usually reclassified as Inizaros. And Inizaro is just a Hispanization of Janissary or Yeniseri, or the Turkish, basically the mercenaries for the Turkish Empire, um, kind of troops, and also they served in many cases as bureaucrats. But basically, the Spanish took the same idea as the Janissaries, the Turkish Janissaries of the Ottoman Empire, and brought it into New Mexico. And when they brought it into New Mexico, they applied it to those individuals who had finished their labor duties. Basically, those people were natives, they were Indians, but they had been Hispanicized. So they usually spoke Spanish, predominantly Catholic, although holding on to older traditions and even older languages as well, but in a large way adopting aspects of Spanish culture and traditions and customs. And as a requirement for these iniciados, they generally were required to live in the towns and villages on the outskirts of the colony, so that they kind of served as a buffer zone between those nomadic tribes that would occasionally raid New Mexico and the colony itself. So kind of, if those people attacked the colony, they would attack Inizaros instead of the real colonists or pueblos and things like that. They also made up a really vital and major part of what you would call the militia, or the troops that protected New Mexico. And so Rancho de Taos, being one of the northern area Inizaro villages, was connected with being part of that buffer zone along with Taos Pueblo, protecting against raids from especially Comanches, but occasionally got Apaches, and now and then, of course, Utes as well. So Taos has long been sort of perfect example of what you would call a borderlands, a sort of a place in between places, where people from different areas meet up, exchange ideas, exchange themselves, and exchange different resources as well. So those are some of the things I think of when I think of Taos.